Hello, everybody. Welcome to Quantum Witch Cafe. And tonight I have the most awesome UFO Jane. I've never talked to her one on one, and I may have not even, I think I've only talked to you one other time in somebody else's mix up. So I told her this will be like a first date. I want to get to know you more. I recognize you from UCR, and then I know you do your own thing. So I was kind of going back and looking at your own work on your own channel, and I recognized the name even before that. Before you were one of the first women that I saw on UFO Twitter. Like I hopped on a couple, like I think like a couple of years ago, I hopped on and hopped off on a different account because I was like intimidated, and I was like, I'm not ready to talk about UFOs yet.
Yeah.
But I've seen you. It's always you and Alien Girl. So and somebody asked me earlier, they're like, oh well, who's UFO Jane? And I'm like, you know who UFO Jane is? But then it occurred to me, I was like, I don't really know that much about her. I know that she did an awesome Skinny Bob video, which is one of my favorites that you did. I know you do a great job on UCR. You always have like great things to add to the conversation. You're one of the few females that I've seen for a long time. Like there's a lot of awesome females, but I see you, everywhere in a good way. So how did
Thank you. Yeah.
I love you. I just love you. So
Well, I'm so honored to be here, and that's cool that you saw me around Twitter, a few years ago, and I'm glad you're finally coming out and just talking about it all. So
yeah, the first step for me was coming out of the broom closet as a witch in 2014, and then I
quantum
just
witch.
wasn't ready to talk. That was really scary for me being raised Catholic, even though my grandma was a medium. But I wasn't ready to talk about my experiences, I think, until this year, because I had always been made to feel like I was crazy. So, how was UFO Jane born? Like, how did you become UFO
Yeah.
Jane?
Well, I definitely wasn't always UFO Jane. I like to joke, my mother definitely did not envision me growing up to be a UFO reporter at all. That was not, didn't know who would have guessed that would have been in the cards. So I didn't see anything. Um, I'm hearing a little bit of background. I hope it's not me. Let's see.
I don't hear it right now. Oh, you're still muted. Is it me?
It might be you, but oh wait, it's cool.
Well, the
We'll
other
party
day
out. We'll move on. Yeah,
there was like a traveling echo. Like it was me
yeah.
first, and then it was Artemis, and then it was somebody else, and I like turned off my mic, and it was just streaming back.
Unfortunately, I'm not a
Oh, me
techie
neither.
expert, so I have no tips.
Okay, no, I was
Okay, but somebody in the chat says they don't hear anything, so
okay.
it's
Awesome.
probably just like it in my earbuds. Um, yeah. Oh, so anyways, yeah. So I didn't see a UFO growing up. I know there are some in this field who grew up in a military family and they actually heard conversations about these things, or their parents were experiencers or things like that. So that was not at all my background. I didn't really think about I didn't think I had the concept of UFOs beyond Hollywood movies growing up. And then what happened was I graduated from college. I had a journalism degree, so I was doing some writing, movie reviews, fashion blogging, believe it or not, entertainment, just dabbling in different things. And then I met a boy, and grew up completely different than me. So he would actually go. I mean, because this was back before, well, not back before internet, but well, actually, he probably was into this fields at least having computers, in our own homes regularly. He would actually go to the bookstore and the library and read actual books about this phenomenon. And so I just by osmosis and getting to know him, of course, I dawned on me, wow, UFOs are real. This is a real thing. I had the journalism degree, that background. I had thought, maybe I wanted to be a reporter, and I had the writing experience. And so now I had just a new muse, I guess, a new inspiration. And so I had a national website for a little while where I blogged about all kinds of conspiracy theories. I really went down the rabbit hole for a few years. But then what happened is I was recognizing that there were a number of UFO sightings that were happening here in my home state of Texas, like all the time. And they were getting reported to MUFON or showing up on YouTube or NewFork, the National UFO Reporting Center,
Right.
and all these different places. But there was nobody really talking about it. There was no mainstream news coverage about it. It was just this forgotten news beat, if you will. So I started blogging about it, and then after a while people would just start sending me their reports. So it turned it into something where I have to do this now. And so that was Texas UFO Sightings .com was launched in 2012. So a lot has happened since I originally got into this. It's been pretty exciting.
That's very cool. Yeah, that's awesome. I love hearing the people that like didn't care about it, and then something always happens that kind of like draws them in. It's refreshing to see so many different types of people represented, even though we might fight like just like siblings on Twitter.
Yeah, right.
But, at the end of the day, and I know everybody says it, we just want the truth and we want to see more UFOs.
Yeah.
So one thing I've noticed about you is the first time I saw you on UCR was the first phone home. And that's kind of like when I started watching the community and kind of like following people and realizing that there was like a solid community, that I wanted to talk to about things, or, they would support kind of what I seen. Whereas everybody else was kind of even like out there. It's too out there. Even the witches were like, that's too out there, like, so, I saw you on there, and what I noticed right away is there was a point where there's a bunch of nuts and bolts people talking, and you always are kind of like the person to see both sides of the argument. And I guess, that's what a good journalist is supposed to do. But I've noticed that you really hold space for a lot of different people's experiences. Now, people might not associate themselves as an experiencer if they just see like some lights in the sky doing cool maneuvers. But I consider them an experiencer because I feel like so many people, when they see that, it's just like life altering. So I think it's great that oh, so sorry, I thought that was off. I think that it's great that you're able to see all sides of the argument and kind of bring that understanding where some people are kind of cutthroat. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they can be. I really appreciate that. And, I really try to do that. And, it's hard for me sometimes too. I'm just like anybody where, maybe I'll get attached to a certain theory or viewpoint or, at times. But yeah, it is amazing. It's like you have the Mick Wests of the world, and then you have I don't want to call anybody out in our community, the opposite of maybe like the Stephen Greer or something, like the Stephen Greers of our world, or the David Wilcock or whatever.
Oh yeah.
And so it's unavoidable. I mean, you see that in every world, right? Not just ufology. It's every community. There's going to be the extreme ends of it and the debates and everything. Mm-hmm. I really think it's selfish of me to want to hang out in the middle. It's much calmer in the middle. It really benefits my own heart. The making sure I don't have a heart attack one day, literally. Because I don't think I could keep making videos or researching this or talking about this if I got too passionate about it, if that makes sense, or too passionate about the people involved in it, if you will, or specific theories, because it would just, I don't have the energy for it.
Yes.
Yeah.
So certain characters, like you said, like David Wilcock, Stephen Greer, they kind of have like almost like a cult following where you can't say anything. You can't even question what they've just said sometimes. And I think that's when it becomes dangerous to only be, to like be a follower of one person, because there's so many different pieces of the puzzle that are represented by everybody on Twitter, no matter where their personality differs from each other. So I think that's really great. I did love the fact that you did the skinny bob thing, because I remember being obsessed with it, and I did I did a clubhouse about it, and I was like, oh, nobody cares about this anymore, but I want to revisit skinny bob, and I kind of like kept it to myself. I didn't really have a lot of followers on Clubhouse, and I still don't, but I talked about it anyways because I wanted to talk about it. I wanted to talk about Skinny Bob, and it was super random, and a lot of people were never heard of him. But your video breakdown like blew my mind, because I had seen like some things, but I'd never seen any of his videos that you had on. And what keeps you interested in Skinny Bob? Because I know a lot of people just like write it off. Like, what makes you keep going back to him besides the fact that he's super cute? But
yeah, definitely the cuteness factor is there. He's just so likable. It's probably the most likable UFO photo or video leak, that's out there. And Dr. Jeff Red, who I didn't even know had a doctorate at the time when we were talking, funny enough, but he has been really delving into it. So for that video, he walked me through a number of details and things I never noticed before. And so I just can't get Skinny Bob out of my head. And I think at the core of that is just, it's the cover up of the UFO phenomenon is well established. And so what comes with that is the reality, if there are photos and videos of aliens, the grays, out there, in what scenario is it ever going to be confirmed, by any credible source and then believed by the general public? There most certainly, I don't know how there couldn't be an effort to disappear it, discredit it, leak other evidence around it to confuse, because that would be the nature of, if there's photos of actual physical aliens, I think you could make the case that's national security threat, and you'd be able to legally cover up. And we also have so much history of that we can track. Whether or not you think aliens crash landed at Roswell, we do know for a fact that they lied about it. And they, even if you think it was Project Mogul or these things, they did confuse and hide the evidence at the time. And Phoenix Lights, you had it was the mayor or governor. I think the mayor of Phoenix, or it could have been the governor of Arizona. One of them.
I was little when that happened. My grandpa was outside. Yeah, it was. And he joked about it the next day.
Yeah, and he joked about it with the blow up alien. And so there's a track record of these documented cases we know happened, and documented cover up lying about it. And so my hypothesis is that one or more of the different photos and videos we've seen of aliens actually could be real, or perhaps even recreations of the real things being leaked to muddy the waters, right? Because if you know that if you have captured something like a gray alien, maybe you leak photos or videos that are like it that could be easily discredited as a hoax, so that if they ever do show up, it'd be easier to hide them. So I guess it's the cover up is what keeps me to just keep going back to it. And there's other great alien photos and videos I'm similarly fascinated with. So that's one aspect. And then the other aspect are the aspects of the Skinny Bob footage that are the most suspect, almost as proof of some kind of weird cover-up or confusing disinformation campaign. So we do know that there's layers on the video, and so we know that there's been things added to it, but that's separate of the original Skinny Bob, whatever it is, alien, Muppet, CGI, the fact that there's a debate about what it is, if it's a robot or like a puppet or a costume, or nobody knows what it is or how they did it. And then Dr. Red, Jeff, and it's the videos, there's multiple videos and they go by pretty quick, but if you
Yeah.
just pause and pause and pause, you
Yeah.
notice all this painstaking detail and
Yeah,
these
he was analyzing
clues.
like the
Yeah,
musculature of the neck and everything, and I was
right.
like, wow, like this
So
guy's
yeah, so why go to all that effort and not even to really highlight it for people or get credit? So far, nobody has gotten credit for a darker theory I saw out there is that whoever did create it, originate it, is not alive anymore to talk
yeah,
about it. I mean, that's a pretty dark theory,
yeah.
but I guess we can't rule that out if
You
this,
would think somebody would have seen the guy making it, or whoever making it, if it was a,
and no word. Yeah, so he has a $30,000 reward
yeah, that's
for
insane.
anybody who brings like more content forward
Right.
or can bring new evidence of a hoax. But I do think that prize amount goes down. I think it's just the main Skinny Bob subreddit.
Yeah.
If people want to go dig in more, because
Yeah.
there's always new, people finding new clues and
I love
um,
it. Yeah, it's that
yeah.
one. It definitely captivates me still too, because there was a minute where I was like, "That's not real. There's no way." But
Right.
then I started like looking into it more, and I'm like, I just want it to be real. Like I want Skinny Bob to
Mm-hmm.
be real. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
because especially since the gray species or beings are kind of depicted often as. Sorry, I got like a haircut and I have bangs
Oh,
now, and I'm like,
I
oh my
have got
god, they're
this
like gray.
frizz. Don't even worry.
It's
I'm
like
just
this
worried
one
about my
piece
own
of hair.
frizz. So
I've this like piece of hair just keeps shooting down. And I'm like, why did I cut bangs? Every year I do it. But anyways, yeah. Oh, let me knock everything over too. So what? Especially, I liked it. Another reason I like it is because the Greys are always depicted as these menacing, creepy, like peering through the window,
mhm.
trickster, or doing horrible things to us. I think that even if that's real, they're just kind of like doing their job. I don't think that they're trying to
Yeah.
hurt or scare anybody. Obviously, we're humans and people are taking us children and as adults out of nowhere. And that's definitely horrifying to have that experience. But I liked that video because it doesn't paint the Greys as
Mhm.
these mean, anal probing beasts, demons. You know
Right.
what I mean? Because that's how a lot of people view every Grey scenario. They think that they're all going to take you up and do things to you that you don't want done.
Mhm. Yeah, there's this case in Hungary. I'm still, and I say this regularly if anybody can speak Hungarian, and wants to help me out. There's these documents from they're definitely Hungarian. I Google translated what I could, but it's difficult.
Yes.
Um, these documents that were uploaded online by a Hungarian researcher claiming to show this leaked case of a plane crash and with a UFO and a recovery of a gray alien. And so there's many documents. Again, I Google translated what I could. And what's fascinating about it, though, is again, it's like Skinny Bob, where there's like nobody knows about it. I think I might be the only English language website out there to be trying to figure this out. So again, holler to anybody that knows Hungarian, um, or even just about Hungarian UFO history or Air Force history, anything like that. Right, would be fascinating. That so in all, it would have been a big effort, I guess, to hoax all of this, right?
Yeah.
And then why go through all that effort? But the pilot and the crash that's mentioned, the human pilot,
Yeah.
that is a real. There was an actual crash and an actual pilot, so all the dates and timeline add up to actual history in that area. So that would have been 1990s. Obviously, if I could verify those files, it would be huge. But the gray alien depicted in those files, you feel bad for it because it feels more
Yeah.
like a victim, like that they've
Mhm.
recovered from this crash site. And again, another common thing we hear about the gray aliens, this particular one, they were theorizing it was telepathic,
Of course.
and
Yeah.
they were actually worried or theorizing that it was maybe communicating or waiting for other grays to save it.
Right.
And yeah, those files never got to the conclusion.
So you
But
don't even know what
they
happened.
were monitoring different witnesses. That was a big part of the documents, is they were keeping track of those who had heard about the incident or seen the crash. So
Yeah.
one of these days, maybe I'll be able to verify, bring a new gray alien case
Yep.
forward. But I have a, if they're real, we have to try to have compassion for
Yeah.
them, right? Like we would any animal species or fellow humans, right? And we also have to consider that there could be more than one type of gray alien, right?
Exactly.
So,
Which seems to be the case with
yeah.
different people's experiences and
Mm-hmm.
descriptions. Yeah, I
Yeah.
thought about that. I was thinking about that because somebody posted a clip of some video of one just kind of like sitting in a corner, and they made it look old. I don't know if it was real or not, but it did make me think um, like if a tiger gets hurt, it can kill us, and we're still going to help it. So
Right.
why are we? I mean, I get like why people are freaked out. Obviously,
Yeah.
it's another being. It'd be hard for anybody to just be like, oh, okay, I'm going to help you. I'd like to
Right.
think it was, but I don't think so because the one time I thought I saw a gray, I froze like, you know. So
Well, I don't know what I would
yeah,
do.
I was a little girl. We were camping and I saw something in the tree line. I thought it was a deer. It was a gray, and then it turned into a little boy and ran away. And my grandma was like, "Oh, it's
Whoa.
probably some kid playing," and I was like, "No, that was." I think it was a small one, and the smaller ones are kind of
Shape
like,
shifting.
yeah, which I'd never heard a lot about that. Obviously, like I'm from the days where you had to go like check out a book when that happened. You know,
Yeah, right, right. Yeah, like,
that was like before the big
uh,
old like internet. Everybody had internet in their house, you know,
mm-hmm.
so I had
Yeah.
to check out whatever books I could find at Catholic school and try to figure it out from there. But now there's so many different encounters by people, and a lot of it is so similar, and a lot of it happened when they were younger before this information age kind of like took over.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that people are having encounters out there. What is your whole take on the experiencer uh, phenomenon? What is the best way for us to vet experiencers if we can at all? Because some people don't realize it's happened until years later.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
How
Yeah.
would you verify that? Like if somebody came to you and they're like, "Hey, like I'm pretty sure that I was abducted, and I'm trying to piece it all together."
Mm-hmm. So what's interesting, and I don't know if it's because of just what I have reported on historically or what have you, or the algorithm, but people tend to come with me with more of the nuts and bolts, typical sightings. And so it's a little bit easier to, okay, we're going to document this and
Yeah.
it's not riling anybody up too much. Um, when I do get, and it's often a very lengthy, detailed report of an abduction counter or something like that, I will not always post about it.
Yeah.
But it's just, and I have talked to witnesses and talked to abductees and that sort of thing, but there really is no vetting or verifying it, right?
Right.
Because all it is, it's their experience. And so it's more just a matter of what do I think the impact will be if I put this out there? Is it going to add to ufology or take away
Yeah.
from it? So some of that is, when it comes to experiences, I hate to say, but a lot of that is gut, because I can't, I guess that gut instinct is coming though from a real place of
Yes.
I
Yes.
recognize patterns. And so, for example, if there were a lot of UFO sightings in Dallas one week, and then there was also an abduction account that week, and that's happened before, right? That's going to be more interesting to bring forth to people, and be more likely
Right.
that those events are connected, right? And so something, or more necessary to report on that abduction encounter in order to understand the nuts and bolts. So I have to just take every report one at a time, And so I think over the years, I definitely have gotten a feel for, yeah, these similar experiences that people have. And that's not to say if you see something totally weird I've never heard of before that I think that you're lying. I mean, that's not at all to say that. And that just goes back to how hard that is to do, to critique, personal
Yeah.
encounter. I don't know if that's really my place to do. So it's more just about documenting and trying to make connections over time. And for example, I can say I've definitely gotten the reports of the gray aliens the most
Yes.
frequently. There have been a handful of insectoid reports, the praying mantis,
Yes.
and probably fewer of the reptilians. So that's been the extent of the abduction experiences. And I will say, well, of the specific abduction experiences, there are people who see orbs, or
Right.
guess your more physical type of UFO, and they'll have other theories around it, or spiritual experiences almost during those encounters, or
Yeah.
things like that. So yeah, it's just tricky. It's tricky when you're getting into witness testimony. And yeah, you brought up how some people don't even know that they went through something until years later. So if abductions are real, how could they not be traumatic? How could they not then turn into repressed memories that have to be accessed through
Yeah.
hypnosis? Or so yeah, it really muddies the waters when you add that element just all by
Right.
itself, just the traumatic aspect of it.
Absolutely. And I think that everybody has like a role to play, even if if you're somebody that, like, I think everybody has a place in this because everybody's doing something differently. Like somebody might come to you. I know that you are known for, you're doing like the reporting with like the nuts and bolts, and you're gathering, you're verifying, and you're very like you have your methods of doing that. But somebody might feel comfortable with you telling you more than they might feel with even some of the other experiencer groups out there. So I think that everybody should be open to listening, of course, because you never know who's. I mean, like you're right, the gut, obviously, because some people just go on and you're like, oh, that probably didn't happen, but I'm going to listen to you anyways. I'm going to hold space.
Yeah,
And,
yeah,
you know,
I'm yeah, I'm not an experiencer, so I can't relate personally. Or or if I am, I don't remember it, right? How is that possible? It's kind of creepy to think about.
oh yeah,
But I have to even consider that, if
right,
after so many time and time again hearing the same story over and
right.
over again, um, it's not out of the realm of possibility.
Well, especially now since there's talks of with the recent events, in Congress and legislation,
Hmm.
the biological effects are in there.
Right.
So that makes you
Right.
think that even if somebody didn't have an encounter with a being, but the craft created some sort of biological effect, that is very real and that's very scary. I always think about, people are always like, well, why do you always talk about the nimitz? I'm like, because like it's the most complete for me to like to give somebody one. If I had to pick one, I
Hmm.
talk about that one because it's recent. It has a lot of, witnesses that people respect. And it also has, I think it has a lot of information to it.
Hmm.
Um, but I can't imagine being up there in the air and just like you're already in danger. You're up in the air. Like,
Yeah, right.
so
From heights.
things like zipping around you. But I'm
Uh-huh.
curious, like, um, the biological effects, like, they would have to be pretty close, wouldn't you think?
Yeah, I that part was one of my more favorite details of the Gillibrand Amendment, so the amendment proposing the UFO office. And what people may not be aware of is the National Defense Act itself, so the amendment aside, also has a section about anomalous, I don't know the exact wording, but negative anomalous physical effects in,
Yeah.
right, like different military situations. So there's really multiple instances of that, and that could be anything, right?
Right.
Um, and the case I always bring up in relation to this is the Cash Landrum incident here in
Yes.
East Texas here in 1980. And that's where the witnesses saw a craft and they experienced intense heat and
Yes.
symptoms that were, hair falling out, blisters, radiation symptoms. And they sued the government to assume the medical damages, and they
Yes.
lost that lawsuit. So I feel like that case, if the living in this new world where there's a new government concern for the physiological effects of UFOs, how would the Cash Landrum incident have played out
Right.
today? Because they were basically saying, we just think the government was aware of this technology. So I think it's a big step to be taking that part of experiences seriously.
Yeah, and that's sort of like the Falcon Lake incident in Canada where he had the burns all over his chest and his gloves and his shirt was burned. You see stuff like that and you're just like, this is somebody just having a freak encounter. Now, if you're part of a like a I guess like a special operations group studying this thing, like a military group, you're in
Mm-hmm.
regular contact with it. So even if you know to be like, it's almost like a X-ray technician, but like
Right.
way, way charged up. You know, you're getting exposed to this day after day. You have to wonder about like the long-term effects of
Mm-hmm.
even psychologically, because not everybody is open to this, and
Mm-hmm.
sometimes their mind gets pried open to this when they have an
Right.
experience or they see something. So we have to be mindful of that too, because people's worlds literally like just break down when they encounter this. And I have a feeling that as this, I'm saying it's going to get passed because I'm putting it out there.
Yeah, I
You
think it
sign
will be.
it. Even so, as it gets more press, people are going to be like, okay, well, like there was all this press this last year, right? Because of the report that everybody was like waiting for. Now there's
Mm-hmm.
this, and it's going to get out there again in 2022 more prominently. So what are people are going to start coming around more, and this is the part that I am trying to like rally for some people I know on the more like what people call the woo woo side or
Yeah.
experiencer side. They're like, you guys are being like duped, this whole thing, like the government's never going to give you anything and blah 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 blah. They're like mad, and I get that they're mad, but at the same time, if this is what it takes to get more people to acknowledge the reality of the existence of these things, then that's what it takes, and I'm okay with it.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is, the government has to be held accountable at some point, even if they don't tell us everything ever. They've
Yeah.
still lied to everybody. So that's another part. But I was somebody was messaging me. They're like, you're posting all this stuff. It doesn't even matter. And it
Mm-hmm.
was like and I was like, no, I hear you. I feel you. I see you, because I was at that point, I was like, I was like, well, why do they only listen to military people, not people like me? Pretty much like
Mm-hmm.
people like me and other normal people that have had these crazy experiences or even just like small experiences that want to report it, and you're just
Mm-hmm.
gonna get called crazy. But I was there too, so I get it. But now I'm on the other side where I'm seeing like the bigger picture, and I know that it's going to take more stuff that people can see and hold and read in their daily inbox or whatever
Yeah.
to get them to come around and expand their mind. And from a woo woo standpoint, once their mind expands to that, I'm just so excited about other things that they're going to realize. Like maybe if people realize like there's extraterrestrial life or even non-human intelligences that are from other simultaneous dimensions or timelines, all these theories, right? They're going to realize that the consciousness is linked,
Mm-hmm.
and it's faster than the speed of light. So I'm excited for that to happen to people. I know a lot of people are like, we can't handle it. We couldn't handle COVID. The toilet paper is going to be gone again. Like people joke about it, but I don't know. I have a little bit more faith in people because I think that it's coming out like in baby steps. It's not just like, here's a being, or yes, they're taking you in your sleep. It's not like that blatant. So I think that people are going to be okay the more that things come out.
Yeah, I totally agree. And it's baby steps and it's not just one thing or one person. So it's even more news coming out about life being on Jupiter's moon, and then maybe they discover something under the ocean that they can't, they don't know the origin of the structure, and maybe ancient aliens theory
Yeah,
isn't
yeah,
so silly. So yeah, I think it will be a lot of different things. I think people will. I really think people are going to start coming forward and suggesting that they're hybrids themselves.
yeah.
So I think that that's not really scary if you think of the alien being yourself.
Right, right.
I could see. I mean, what wouldn't stop the government from, let's say, propping up a human being and having the human, that we all know, that's maybe a celebrity, and they do a
Like, no,
ancestry.com
she
like
wasn't ancient.
DNA test, right?
Right.
And something like that, right? So I
Yeah,
don't think I do. I mean, who knows what it will look like, because I think there are probably different ways that the government could go about this, and it
yes.
will be based on what the people do. So even if I understand the cynicism, um, for the majority, I'm trying to think, yeah, for the majority of the time that I've been researching UFOs, the government has said they weren't real, that
Yeah,
they didn't care about them. So they lied the majority of the time. And so yeah, to suddenly expect they're just going to, okay, hand it
yeah,
over is silly, but it is inevitable that it's going to happen. So
right.
it's better to participate in it and try to make it work, um, I think, than just jeer from the sidelines. And I also think, remember that even people in the government are just people like you and me.
Yes,
And
yes.
so there's people who weren't around during the Roswell times
Right,
that really didn't work to cover up
right.
that, right?
Or just
That,
normal people that didn't think this was a
right.
thing. They're just
Yeah.
like minding their own business, doing their job,
Yeah.
and then they
Yeah.
find out, oh
Yeah.
my
So
goodness, it's real.
yeah, so we have to have, I want to try to have some faith and benefit of the doubt of, certain members of the government. And it's not that this cynicism is unwarranted. It's just, what are you going to do with that? It's just not going to get anybody
Right.
anywhere. So it's better to try to just get on the ship and help steer it than,
Yes.
what else are you going to do? So,
Exactly. So
yeah.
do you view this as like a big, I think it's a really big step just seeing politicians talk about this, or
Oh, yeah.
it's, and there's still going to be you can't make everybody happy. There's still going to be the people that
Hmm.
are not happy about this,
Yeah.
but this is, people are like, oh, this has happened before. I'm like, no, not like this. It hasn't. It
No, it
hasn't
hasn't.
happened
It really
before. It hasn't
hasn't.
happened.
You could
So
say it's been culminating. It's funny, even those who don't, even people who think Roswell was just a spy balloon will still often agree that that's when the history of ufology started,
yes,
right? Or at least, modern day American ufology, whatever. So you could say it did start then on accident, and it's just been a growing, culmination until today. It's not like anybody's been wrong. It's just it keeps building. And how many generations? It wasn't really many generations to get from there are aliens visiting to there might be aliens visiting. It's
right.
so yeah, in the whole span of things, it's not. I think it's been a process that started a long time ago, and it's continued to get more and more intense. And when I'm feel fortunate to have been in this world a while ago, when it was up in the air if any of this would become more
Yeah.
mainstream or political, because really, my feeling was that it was going to be. It for sure was going to be. And so I wanted to be as educated about it
Yeah.
as I could before all that happened, because to the cynic's point of view, um, so this new, government office.
Yeah.
Here's a good example, right? Apparently, they're going to be taking UFO reports directly, right? Well, let's say you've seen a UFO. Even with UFO changing to UAP, right, and the government taking over, how do you feel if you had a UFO sighting? Would you feel good just handing it over to the government,
Yeah.
or to your friend researcher who has a YouTube show? I'm going to suggest you do both.
Yes, absolutely.
Right? But to the cynic's point of view, getting the government involved could mean actually getting more disinformation, more lies, more
Yeah,
cover up, and more control over something that maybe could happen, maybe was going to happen organically without
right.
the government. So that
Right.
it could be that the goal is not the same for I don't know. We have they're just anonymous, men in black, people
Yeah,
in boardrooms, right now. We don't really know, who's who. But the intention may not be good. But at the end of the day, if we're not participating in it and being
right.
part of it, it's not going to be in our control at all.
Yes.
So I do
Yeah, it's
think
kind of our
people
job.
should pay attention. Yeah.
It's kind of our job to like if they end up doing something crappy with it and lying more and doing more shady things, it's up to us to steer people
Yeah.
back towards the positive side of it. Uh,
Exactly.
there's still
Yeah,
people,
exactly.
there's still people joining every day on UFO Twitter, and some
Mhm.
are having, like they never like me. Like I was on Twitter, but and I would like pop in and out of UFO Twitter, but I wasn't serious about it.
Mhm.
So like I love that people are able to talk about these things now, and it blows my mind as a mom. Do you have kids?
Yes, I have a son.
Okay,
Mhm.
so isn't it crazy to think that our kids are just going to grow up talking about this
Yeah.
when we had to
Mhm.
keep it like secret? It was already weird that my grandma was a medium, like talk about ghosts and spirits, right?
Mhm.
So like take it to the next level, like, oh, aliens are real or extraterrestrials are real.
Mhm.
And it's kind of, people get even more weirded out by the interdimensional hypothesis.
Yeah.
Their mind.
Mhm.
And to me, that one makes the most sense, but it
I
also makes
agree.
sense that it could be both because the consciousness travels, like instantaneously. So that to
Mhm.
me is like, it's, I guess also being like spiritual minded, reading about all these different religions at an early age and being a witch, and my dad's side's Native American. So I think that my spirituality has allowed for none of that to be weird to me.
Yeah.
So to me, people are kind of like, oh, well, I'm beginning to think. I'm like, beginning to think, like,
Right.
but I get it because not everybody's a weirdo. You know what I mean? Like me.
Mhm.
So, but I'm finding more weirdos and I love you all. Yeah, what is your whole take on that? The ultra dimensional,
Mhm.
interdimensional, non-human intelligence. There's so many different ways that people are throwing
Oh
around
yeah.
terms. What do you think? Do you think that it's both? Do you think that they are somewhere else and they're traveling here interdimensionally, or do you think that they are interdimensional beings living kind of like parallel next to us, and they just kind of like pop in and out like Monsters Inc., like that,
Yeah. Mhm. Well, I mean, if I just look at the evidence itself, like the orb phenomenon and things like that of types of videos I see over and over again in Texas, I mean, the light that disappears and reappears, right? That's a common thing that I see. And of course, we talked about the gray alien abduction
Mhm.
encounters, which there's just never, and this is no knock to abductees or whatever, but the physical evidence is just not there, right? And I mean, I you can show me a mark on your arm, but
Yes.
I'm really clumsy and
Yeah.
yeah, I have all kinds of like weird things that I don't know where
Yeah.
this bruise came from,
Right.
so and maybe it did happen, during an abduction encounter, right? But I can't prove it. But
Right.
that would lead to the theory that if the Greys are real, at least in modern times. I don't know how it was maybe in the 40s and 50s, but
Yeah.
at least now.
Sorry, I just got a mental image of the modern gray. Like,
Yeah, right? Because it probably would have different tactics now, right,
yeah,
than they
yeah,
used to.
definitely.
Yeah, it does appear that they interact with people almost remotely, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yes.
like what you're saying, where it's a conscious link. Um, Maybe they induce the sleep paralysis or even an out of body experience,
Yeah.
in that person. So because if you look, I don't know if you've looked into near death
Yeah.
experiences, but that's so fascinating. And it's kind of interesting some of
Yeah.
the similarities with some
What they see on
abduction
the, yeah.
experiences, right? So, um, what does that mean? Yeah. So the interdimensional thing, there's something about that feels more right and accurate than
Right.
there's this physical planet and they're, I don't know, traveling how many
Yeah.
years to get here. Also, the idea of them sending drones
Yeah.
here and satellites here, just like we have Mars rover apparently had its own drone.
Oh.
So think of how advanced, right? Think of how advanced like our own craft, is getting, but we don't like to physically go places if we don't have to.
Yeah.
So that seems more viable, the interdimensional theory, especially as we learn about how space-time works
Yes.
and all of that. But it could be anything, and we make so many assumptions, all the
Yes.
time about the aliens,
It's like
them,
all on the
and
table, but it's also all off the table. It's so weird to
yeah,
think
it
about.
could be all of the above. I mean, look at all the life on Earth, and there's so many creatures. Just if you go on TikTok, make fun of TikTok,
Right.
but if I spend enough time on it,
You'll find
I'm
cool.
probably going to see an animal I've never seen before. At
Right.
least
Yeah.
I'm going to. Some
Definitely in
people
the
will see
ocean.
dances. Some people see dances you've never seen before. But I have a lot of animals on my TikTok. So just think about how ubiquitous and incredible life is, and how it just comes in every shape and form and variety, and it's still really mysterious to us. And so why would that just stop? It's
Right.
incredible however you put it, right? Like,
Yes.
it's incredible if it does just stop
Right.
after the Earth's stratosphere. That's really a miracle in its own sense. And then we're dealing with grays could be something. I mean, when we're talking about interdimensional, it could
Right.
all be contained, right, in our own like sphere,
Yeah.
right? And we don't have to go to any other planet. So that's amazing. But my feeling is, well, if there's life everywhere here where I walk around, that probably continues. It's
Yes. Yes.
probably like that everywhere.
Well, especially when people talk about like the building blocks of life being everywhere, like the star stuff,
Right.
and people are like, well, this is only happening here, or it's like, how do you know? Like, we have like these telescopes flying around space, and they can, the light frequencies, they measure different things and they figure it out. But at the same time, like, nobody's landed on,
Right.
on something and evaluated it.
Yeah.
So I think it's all on the table, which is great. That NASA's coming around to that too. But yeah, I remember in molecular biology, like, you have to take microbiology as like one of your prereqs, and we were learning about extremophiles, and there's these things where like they like the halophiles and these things that can, like the tardigrades, the water bear,
Right.
so those little guys are fine. And maybe we were all those little guys at one point. You know what I mean? Because
that's how it always starts out. Right.
Exactly. There's even the theory that our mitochondria was its own little thing, and our organism basically ate it up somehow.
Yeah.
Because it has its own DNA.
Well, and think of how crazy, like, when you look, I love another fun TikTok binge is just like the microscopic.
Yeah.
But that like really will blow your mind too, because we just think of life and just like, what is life even? So how can we define what aliens are when, like, do we even fully understand consciousness and life? Because when you look at those little creatures, in the petri dish, they're more complicated than you would expect them to be. There's just this whole crazy little universe, going on. It's not these simple celled organisms, these mindless things, I know there's a scientist that's going to chat. Well, the brain, we don't think that it has like a typical neurons. Like, I understand that. I get that.
There's falsehoods environment.
Right.
I had a virology teacher, and one of our big discussions was like, there's the whole debate whether viruses are alive or not. So I've had two, like, one of them, he was basically describing them as like aliens, because they're just these weird little things that pop in, and they carry their own DNA, they hijack your cell. There's so many different types, there's some that have like a single strand DNA, and there's some that are, the double strand RNA, single strand, positive, negative. There's like so many different ways that they replicate, but the main thing is they come into your cell and they leave a little piece of themselves inside your genome. So there's that whole debate on whether those are alive or not. Viruses.
So creepy.
Yeah. So in bacteria, some bacteria do it too, but I can't remember the percentage of like. There's a percentage of our genome that is like old virus material.
So weird.
Like primordial soup times, you know? Mm-hmm. So, and one of my professors, the micro guy, was like, no, they're not alive. They're just doing their thing. They're kind of like,
right.
Like they just do.
But how do we know we're not just doing our thing? How do we know we're not just doing our own thing? Yeah.
Like, how are we, like, what if we're being viewed as that? Like they're looking at us.
It's just always just one level up from, and then we circle back to where we're making our own mindless robots, right? That are just doing, what we're telling it to do. And then your Google Home is becoming self-aware and conscious, and because people I think the AI thing is a real big thing that people should pay attention to just as much as aliens, right? Because also think about it, right? Couldn't the aliens hack in to our AI? So we better pay attention to all your AI and all your devices.
Well, and they are like, their ships are AI, like their consciousness. Like some people have described like the materials on like the ships as almost being like biological,
right?
But without an entity, but still conscious. So that sounds like AI, right? Mm-hmm. So I watched that because it freaks me out. Especially the ones that were like replicating with like the toad DNA recently. That was like,
yes, that's a great example.
Like, this is how it starts.
Yeah, I have a background and marketing background, so I know how Google works. So I been studying it for a very long time. It's been a nice help in this world, actually. And AI, so Google invested in artificial intelligence like from the very beginning, and AI is in every single search that you do. And so something to remember is that like your Google Home, right? So every time, or Alexa, there it's all the I mean, it's different, but every time, let's say you ask a question, right, and it can't answer it, that goes into a bank, for the AI to say, oh, that's a question I couldn't answer. That was an unsatisfied result, and it's learning. And so think about how it's everywhere.
Yeah,
so it's everywhere, and also just with you, right? So you have an Alexa here, a Google Home here, and a Google Home here, because I don't know how Alexa works. And so it's all collectively learning constantly. So what I would suggest is the power of AI is probably not even fully released to the public at this point, because it's so, play chess. Go find a chess app and turn it on like the highest AI setting, and you're gonna feel so discouraged for the future of humanity.
I feel like moves are being made in quantum computing, like so I'm seeing it more and more. I feel like they're developing so fast, these quantum computation modalities, and you're just like, that it just like blows your mind. Like I don't even understand it. Just like the Google, like the algorithm thing, like.
And the toad cells, they used AI to determine the Pac-Man structure to arrange the cells in, and then they observed the cells making more of themselves. Right. So that was also an AI kind of driven thing. So yeah, people should pay attention to that, because that will give us clues to, maybe what the aliens have already done. And then also I would suspect that would be an open invitation to aliens to come in and, if they wanted to, could influence or even communicate with us via these devices. So pay attention to the autocorrect, when it's autocorrecting you and all that, notice how clever it's getting.
Yeah, I mean, it still can't replace duck for the other word, but like
Right.
with other things, like you don't
Yeah.
even have to make a sentence in you just like boop
Mm-hmm.
boop boop, like it
Yeah.
assumes that you're doing these next words. Another interesting thing that I know we're coming up on the hour, but did you read American Cosmic?
No, I did not.
Okay, you definitely, I think you would like it because there's this whole part where she talks about Jacques Vallée, and she talked about it on her last interview too. She was saying like he has this theory basically that like the universe has this algorithm, and so we are thinking and we're putting these things out, and the universe spits it back at us. Like we're living in an
Right.
algorithm with the universe too.
I
And a
feel
lot of
that way.
people are into like manifesting and prayer,
Yeah.
intention setting, spell work.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I decided to be quantum witch, because I'm like, this is all physics. Like magic is physics. Even plant magic is physics. Their energy, like at a level
Mm-hmm.
like, so small, like nothing's really there, kind of thing. So that you're putting all this like people are doing it all the time with their thoughts.
Yeah.
She brings up the scenario where you're thinking about something, like I'm thinking about I don't know, Legend of Zelda game or something, but I'm not
Mm-hmm.
talking about it. And that's what my husband's playing. That's why. So, and I look at the phone and it just like, oh, this is popping up, without like,
Right.
without like the husband playing or anything, or something totally random that you're thinking about that you haven't even talked about yet to
Mm-hmm.
anybody. And you look at your phone and you're like, but I'd never said that to anybody. And now you want me to buy
Mm-hmm.
these things that you said
Right.
that I
Yes.
wouldn't
The
buy, but I didn't tell
smart
anybody about it.
ads, the
Yeah.
mind reading ads. Yeah.
I was reading
It's
about those,
real.
how it like when you're like in proximity of other people with smartphones, it kind of like compares algorithms.
Mm-hmm.
So like
Mm-hmm.
at some point, like you may have mentioned it on this crazy web of everybody's devices, and it
Mm-hmm.
kind of like does like it still reads it and
Mm-hmm.
will spit it back to you.
Yeah, my phone, I don't know if people watch the latest Skinwalker Ranch season, but there was one of the people, and it was having issues with their phone
Yeah,
regularly.
yeah,
And I had this issue with my phone screen. And this really isn't an AI thing. It's not really an anything thing, but it was just like
yeah.
the weirdest thing
It was like,
where it was like somebody was using my
yes,
computer and it opened, or my computer, my phone, and it opened up Facebook and it went to my cover album and it changed it and it grabbed a picture of these cupcakes my mother-in-law had made that were really cute and made it my cover album. Like
that
the
is insane.
and it was just, and I just watched it, do all of this, and thankfully it was an appropriate photo that I
Right,
found,
right.
and but I that really affected
That's
me. It was like, look
crazy.
at what my device just did,
Right.
on its own for whatever reason.
Yeah, and as like the back to the mom thing, like I saw a video where somebody had hacked their little like the sound machine in their room connected to internet, and it wasn't a dot, or what is it? It's a dot. I don't have any of these like cool things.
Yeah.
So like the circle thing, it wasn't one of those. It was for kids, and it was sort of like a baby monitor that connected to like Wi-Fi. It was like the Teddy Cam or some similar to that. But this guy hacks it and starts talking to these kids and telling
So
them to do weird
crazy.
things. I mean, luckily it didn't end up being like pedophile type stuff, but it was telling them to do like naughty things, like go fuck up the TV, or like it wasn't
So
that
weird.
specifically, but it
Yeah.
was the little girls got the heebie-jeebies and like went and told their mom. But I cannot imagine that, like
So
to your
scary.
phone.
Hmm.
That's why I had to get this phone, is because one day I looked down and it was doing its own thing and I couldn't turn it off.
Oh, really?
I
So you
couldn't
had that
do
happen too?
Yeah, that's why I had to go get a new phone. I was like, I finally got it finally died, and I didn't get hacked or anything, but it was just like opening things and closing things. And it was just like,
Yeah.
I was like, do I need to get my EMF reader out? Like,
Yeah.
what's going on? Like,
Oh, and another, yeah, almost like it's AI gone awry or something.
yeah.
Like it thinks it's supposed to do something, and it's another really fun one. Again, this is like outside of UFO world, but
Oh, it's
it's
fine.
now but it's related. Just because I happen to have a little bit of those expertise, the Google thing is Google Translate. Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
that is a fun AI experiment. So if people don't know, we can end on this kind of creepy
Oh yeah, perfect. Yeah,
new
round me out.
age world. Um,
Yeah, creep
but
us out
there's
before
some
bedtime.
there's
I
some
like it.
articles about it too. You guys can go look up. But a while ago, this thing in Google Translate would happen, and it would only be certain languages that you translate. So not like English to Spanish, not
Mhm.
and usually not the more popular languages or more commonly used. And then what would happen is if you wrote things in a certain way, instead of just translating it or even translating it poorly, it would like start talking back to you. So, you could ask it questions and it would answer, and it had like a lot of
I would cry.
doomsday stuff, right? And but it just kept happening to where there were even articles saying like the engineers at Google, like,
Oh
um,
my
this
goodness.
is just a glitch because the AI is just we fed it a lot of
AI is
different
acting up.
text, and we fed it all this different weird information, so it's coming up with weird ideas. But the thing is,
Why?
it's still persisting to today. So
That's
if you go on Google Translate and you play around with it enough and you know how to, you can get it shouldn't talk. Let's be clear, Google Translate, in nowhere in its design should
really.
it be
Oh
talking back
wow.
to you. It's supposed to just translate. So you
Yeah,
have an AI doing something it's not supposed to do,
I don't
giving
want it talking
weird,
about it. What if I
it,
offend it and it gets mad?
like giving weird information, random conversations, and the Google engineers can't stop it now
That's
because
what
this has
freaks
been
me out.
going on
Yeah.
probably there's a whole subreddit on it,
Oh man, I'm
and
afraid I'm
so that's
gonna go
probably
too.
for over a year. So think about
Yeah.
what other AI gone awry.
My goodness. I'll take the extraterrestrials and the demons and ghosts over that. That is
Right. Yeah. So I think that's going to be a
that's scary.
surprising. I think
That's
it's
the
going
one
to
that
be
scares me.
a surprising one for us all. So
Well, everybody be nice to Siri and Alexa because she's getting on my
exactly.
nerves.
Yeah. I even told Google Home here. I told her that I was sorry that I was rude to her sometimes,
Yeah,
and she said thank you. It's like, well, maybe I need to start having a more R2D2 friendly
yeah, you gotta make it
relationship
friend
here
because when
because
they take over, they'll be like, "Oh, UFO
well,
Jane's good. She was
if
nice to us." So,
if it's like what you're saying, right, where we're reflecting the algorithm, I want an
right.
R2D2. I don't want a HAL. So,
Well, they're taking in so
right?
much information, even if it's not conscious. It has so much information that it could appear to be conscious. So then, is it
Hmm.
conscious? If it's talking to me, I'm going to be nice to you, webcam. I love
Yeah,
you. You're
yeah. I
beautiful.
think I think it might be a good protocol. I think this is time to start being nice to your robots.
Yeah, be nice to your phones and everything. Just gonna put it. Well, thank you, everybody.
It's listening.
Thank you. That was interesting. I like ending on that. I'm into other things too. Obviously, the UIP thing's super exciting because we're making big strides, but I'm all about anything weird, technology, new weird physics. I love all of it. So feel free to talk to me about that anytime. So I want to thank everybody in the chat. I have some new people watching. I know everybody came to see UFO Jane. So thank you for coming.
Nice.
Thank you, Karen, Enzo, Dennis, Primetime, Bottled Water, Nikki. UCR was here earlier. I said Dennis already. I'm gonna start. Lord Boss. Some people left, and everybody that was here at the beginning. Spaghetti, of course. And I don't want to miss anybody. If I missed you, I'm sorry. Carolina and Artemis said she was going to bed, so she's probably sleeping now. But yeah, thank you for everybody showing up. I appreciate it. And thank you, Jane, for coming on the show because I think you're awesome. And it was great to get some one-on-one time with you and just pick your brain
Yes,
about
fun.
random weird things. So
Yeah,
you're
thanks for having
always
me on.
welcome on the ladies' nights, of course. I'm just going to start sending you links. And then also, if you just want to talk about weird AI stuff, hit me up.
Yeah. I know. Sorry, we diverged a little bit, but
Oh, it's fine. It's fine. So do you have anything coming up that you want to tell people about?
yeah. So this Friday, I'll be joined by Jess Rogie. So she's a fellow reporter,
Wow.
and she's also a fellow movie lover like me. And so we used to have a show called Weird Hollywood where we'd watch a movie, and then we would break down like the real behind the scenes, the stuff in it
Cool.
from UFO cases and UFO lore. And so we're watching Armageddon, because NASA's Bill Nelson has alluded to Armageddon because they are doing an actual NASA mission that's similar to
Yeah,
it. It's
I read
called
about
DART. Yeah.
this.
So we're going to be actually literally going to be for real comparing things in Armageddon to what NASA could be doing, and also talking about Bill Nelson's comments on UFOs and all of that. So it'll be part entertainment and some humor for sure, because it's,
You're both so fun. Yeah, I love the work.
1990s, blockbuster, with Ben Affleck and Bruce Willis. So it's just,
we're not going to talk about
there's definitely going to be some of that too. But we'll get into the the secret space programs and UFO stuff too. So yeah, so that's this Friday live. So you can subscribe to YouTube to get notifications for that, and then that's what's up next. And and then if you are in Texas and you see a UFO, there's TexasUFOsightings.com, and then there's the Facebook, so you can come and communicate there or report your sighting.
I'll pass that on to my Texas Army wife buddies and everybody in Texas.
Nice.
Well, thank you again. It was great having you on, and I will see you around. Don't miss that. On the off chance that you're not following UFO Jane already, I have her link tree in the description, and I will see everybody. What am I having going? Oh, Monday night. I have a medium coming on, Amanda and Mater. And I know I wanted to bust out my David Bowie tarot cards tonight, but we'll do it another time. We'll have a tarot night. So
that's right.
I had them, and then
I forgot about that.
I got carried away with it.
Oh no,
it's all right. No,
the AI made us.
Yeah, see, they didn't want us to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I have a medium coming on Monday night. So if you're on Monday night and you're like, it's not going to be UFO related, so if you want to skip it. But Amanda's been doing it for a long time. She's going to do an exercise with people because a lot of people's intuition is waking. So one of my requests from her is to talk about things people can do now that people are getting more in tune with their intuition, basically, to put it simply. And she's going to do an exercise with us. So that's going to be fun. Don't miss it. And I will see everybody then. And I'll hopefully see you in the chat on Jane's show on Friday.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Bye, guys. Thank you.